believe that I recorded this whole lesson already once? And when I got to the end and went to stop my camera, it actually had crashed right when I started recording. So if you see marks on my paper, that is why there are already marks. But I erased everything the best I could, and I'm going to start over. So first things first, we need to be talking about what time is it? So I have some of our flashcards right here. We will be working on Unit 5, Lesson 7, pages 241 and 242 in just a moment. But first, we're going to talk about the time. What time is it? Go ahead and type it in chat. All right, what time is it? It's 12:10. So hopefully you notice the hour hand is pointed right at the 12, and the minute hand is pointed at the 2, and if you count by 5s, you end up getting to 10. 5, 10, so 12:10. Next one. What time is it? Thank you so much. It's 7:15. So if we look right here, we see that it has not hit 8 o'clock yet. It's still in the 7s zone. And if we count up by 5s, 5, 10, 15, we know that that 3 means 15. And so many of you are starting to recognize already that when it's pointed at 3, that just means 15. Last one. What time is it? Type it in the chat, please. Thank you so much. Yes, 2:45. This one was kind of tricky because it's hard to tell where that is pointed at. But if you look closely, it is still in the zone of 2 o'clock. It needs to go a little bit further before the hour hand is pointed right at the 3. So it gets a little tricky when the minute hand is going farther around. But we also know 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. If you count and go around, you're going to end up with that correct time. All right, so let's get going with Puzzled Penguin. He says, am I correct? Well, we know that whenever we see the Puzzled Penguin, is he correct? Everybody unmute yourself and tell me. No, he's never correct. That's why he's the Puzzled Penguin, not the perfect penguin. All right, now we know that when you are reading graphs, a really smart thing to do, first thing is just make sure you have your data correct. So we're going to go through and write our totals at the ends of each of these horizontal bars. So go ahead and do that right now. Make sure your information's on there. And then go ahead and read that question to yourself. Take a look at what the Puzzled Penguin has done and start thinking about it. Okay, so the information that we need to find out is how many more children choose fruit than nuts. So he says that there are 8 fruit kids, there are 5 nut kids, and we don't know the difference. And he says 8 minus 5 equals 3, so there are 3 more children choose fruit over nuts. Let's look at this. We've got 5 people who chose nuts, 4 people who chose grapes, 8 people who chose apples, and 3 people who chose pretzels. What information do we have here that's extra information? We don't care about this, do we? Okay. Does he have the right amount of fruit there? So what did he do wrong? Thank you. He forgot to add the grapes plus the apples. So we need to add 4 plus 8 to find out the appropriate number of fruit. So go ahead and quickly add 4 plus 8 and figure out that total. Type it in the chat. All right, and he made this little graph here, or this little chart, whatever you want to call it. My brain isn't doing it right. And he has fruit, and he has nuts, and then he has the difference that goes in there. How are we going to figure out how many more kids chose fruit than nuts? Well, actually, first I want to ask, what do we write in here? How much fruit do we actually have? How much nut people do we actually have? And now we need to figure out the difference. How are we going to figure that out? Yeah, we need to subtract 12 minus 5. Go ahead and figure out what 12 minus 5 is. Write your answer in there and put it in chat. And this is how we would solve the problem. So we just did that work right here. What's 12 minus 5? All right, 7. 7 more children chose fruit than nuts. So what did he forget to do? He forgot to add the total of the fruit together. Any questions about that before we move on? All right, so now we're going to be starting to talk a little bit about tables and how to use them in graphs. And you can see right here, this is part of what I had done already when I was starting to add things up and make the graph. So I'm glad I didn't finish it all the way, otherwise it would be a little bit tricky right now. All right, the first thing it says is to make a table. So what kind of information are we going to look at here? What do we have here? This is a collection of what? Yeah, it's a collection of shapes. And so if you had these shapes sitting in front of you on a table and they were all cut out, how would you sort them? What kind of different piles would you put them into? Yeah, you would put them into probably stars, triangles, and circles. Is there any other way that you could sort them if you wanted to? All right, we could sort them by color because there are blue, white, and orange colors in here. And we could also do it by size, but that would be a lot trickier because it's hard to tell which, like the actual same size they would be. So we're looking at area, we're looking at perimeter, like what are we looking at there? So that's a little trickier. So we're gonna go ahead and count up each shape. So what are the 3 shapes that we actually have here? Go ahead and say them to me. And we're gonna go ahead and write these down as spelled correctly as possible, so that we are practicing spelling these words correctly. So we have stars, triangles, and circles. So if I were to be counting up the totals of each of these, I would actually put a slash through each one as I counted it so I could keep track and make sure not count it twice. So I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that just helps me to keep track of each one. Go ahead and count the rest of these up, and then I will ask you for how many of each in just a moment. All right, how many triangles do we have? Everyone. And how many circles do we have, everybody? Alrighty, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a bar graph and we're gonna graph this information. Before we start graphing though, we need to name the graph. So I think we should carry this name over to here. What do you think? And what are we gonna write down here on each of these? Yeah, stars, triangles, and circles. And we're just gonna copy that down so we're spelling them correctly. Stars, And you have to kind of write small so that you can keep it on that line. All right, in the last part of making our graph, I have a trick question for you. Is this 0 or 1 here at the bottom? Yes, it is 0. So go ahead and count that up, or label it, I should say. Okay, like before, when we start graphing, draw the line at the top so you know where it ends, and then make the sidelines. You might have already noticed that I put stars in the middle of each one, or in this one. You can do that. You could put triangles in the middle of the next one and circles in the middle of the other, or you can just color it in or put the cross hatching on like I've showed you before. When you finish graphing this, turn it in to me. I want to see this side and I want to see this side. All right, friends, thank you for working hard.